Okay, we are recording. Veronica, how are you today?
I am excellent. It's warm here in Copenhagen. You
Oh,
know, it's warm in a way where you can leave your house without a jacket, even though you don't know when you're going to come back. And that doesn't happen that often. So, in that sense, it feels like ultimate freedom.
I mean, you're talking to someone in the UK, so I know exactly what you're saying. And bizarrely enough, we've got sunshine today, so it is such a lovely little treat, and it's a very small window in a year that we can go outside and just enjoy a little bit of sunshine. So yeah, perfect start to the show. Um, I always kick off the show the same way, Veronica, and I ask guests to tell me the song that they regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
That is The Great Gig in the Sky with the Pink Floyd.
Oh, well,
And I mean, in some ways, the entire song is an intro, right? But when you sent me that question, it was just my intuition. That's this because I mean it's everything. And just last week, I met with my good friend. I hadn't seen her since she was, very pregnant, and she had given birth, and it was a difficult birth.
hmm.
And just at the final moment, all the doctors were there. She was just about to go into a C-section because the birth, was difficult. They said, "You have just a final push. Can you push him out?" And her partner put on this song, and she pushed out her child to the great gig in the sky. And she said, "Isn't that the greatest intro to life?"
Yeah, don't get any better than that, does it? Veronica, tell me a little bit, um, because as you've just sort of highlighted there, that's such an epic song, and it is essentially a long intro, to mirror what you said. When you're making music, when Floyd released that, the industry was in a very different place to where it is now. There was no streaming services, there was no Snapchat, there was no. I mean, the way that you consumed your music was you bought a record, and it was as simple as that. Um, and I think all of the changes that we've seen in the industry over the years, everything seems to become faster and shorter. And certainly with commercial pop music, songs are becoming bite-sized now. I think if a band was to take in Dark Side of the Moon to a record company now, they'd be like, "Whoa, where's the single? Like
Yeah,
this is
yeah, for
over
sure.
7 minutes. What's this?" And but so with all of these changes in the industry and the way that people get their music now, Veronica, can you tell me if any of those changes have had any influence on you as a songwriter and how you create music and essentially the intro as well?
So I think to me, the way I understand your question, I feel like there's two different questions in that. One is the business of music, and the other one is music.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
that's a great way to
I
break it
mean,
down.
just to say, I don't think you should be naive in any way. Of course, there's a business landscape of music, and that has changed, right? And as you say, short formats, etc., singles rather than albums. However, I do still believe that people listen to music of different sorts and shapes. And I've just also, gone to several festivals this year, and I was really surprised to see the variety of music that was there, for example, at Roskilde Festival, and how everyone kind of knew the lyrics and knew I just felt positively surprised. I think if you, just listen to mainstream radio, you get super depressed because it has kind of the same format. But I think beyond that, I do think that there is a huge life for what you can call alternative or different formats and so on. So I'm not too concerned about it. I do think that the development that you're also talking about have also had a positive influence, for example, for an artist like me. Since I started out wanting to be independent and produce my own music, and before you would have to get someone else to say, yes, you're allowed to release this music, right? And now you can just do it. So I think there's pros and cons, but I also do think that there is actually the opportunity for you to express yourself the way you want to. You might not get as many listeners or immediate
Sure.
playlist feeds or whatever, but you can still do your thing and you can give birth to it. And I think if you believe the audience will be there, then the art will come out. So I have great trust in that, and that the whole cycle of length and everything else, it's a cycle, it changes. And I do see tendencies of like different songs that are, popular now that wouldn't have been popular, in the 90s so
Absolutely.
things are changing. In regards to intros, I always make a lot of different intros to my songs, and then I end up editing them out. And maybe because what you say, like, you need to get to some sort of the part of the song
Yeah, yeah,
fast,
yeah.
but I end up making a lot of outros. So I think I compensate with it by like, okay, now you had your song, you got the chorus within the first minute, da, da,
Yeah.
da, and then here comes the outro. So there I'm free to play.
Fantastic. I love the thought that like the end of like all of your songs are just like a combination of like 5 intros that you couldn't really kind of work. So I'll
Yeah,
just stick them on at
exactly.
the end. We'll put them on at the
Yeah,
end.
let's
It'll be
put them there.
fine.
I still like them. And, if you want this 1.5 minutes, then you can just pause.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Veronica, I'm going to take you back and I'm going to ask you to tell me, please, for track 2, the song, the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
So I remember being maybe 4 or 5 years old. And I grew up in a small village south of Aarhus in Denmark. Predominantly, I would say, Danish, white, homogeneous, small village. We were one of the only families of color in that village. And I listened to, I saw the cover, remember the cover of Tracy Chapman, the album Tracy Chapman. And I remember hearing the song Behind the Wall. And I was bilingual when I was small because my father spoke English. He's Indian of heritage. And there was something about the voice and the way she sang, but also that she sang about the police that didn't come. And it freaked me out. And it made me, I think, in my little bubble of this village, I think it's my first connection somehow to music talking about social justice or injustice, and using music as an avenue to describe that. And I think, social justice is also a theme I've been working a lot with, or an agenda throughout my life. And I think that was very formative. Just that way of singing about something that wasn't prevalent in my little place, but connecting into a culture and a movement of using music to talk about things in such a way. So that song just stayed with me always.
Yeah, I think that song and that album is an incredible piece of work, and I think there's a reason that did that come out in maybe 88, like the impact that that record had, and the track that you're talking about is a very short track, and he's absolutely beautiful and just showcases what an incredible voice Tracy Chapman has, and in regards to sort of her voice and having something to say. I'm talking about Revolutions on that album, and that is an absolutely fantastic song. And obviously, we can't not mention Fast Car, which is one of the most beautiful records ever made as well. And yeah, absolutely fantastic album. Um, Tell me a little bit about you painted a picture of where you grew up and stuff, and essentially at home was that a musical environment, Veronica?
Yeah. So my dad was a jazz pianist, and he grew up in Tanzania in Dar es Salaam, with the Indian parents, and he was the firstborn son. So he was shipped up with a spice ship when he was 13 to London, um, to basically I mean, they expected him to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. And he kind of was the rebel in the family in the sense that he chose music. And ended up moving to Denmark and met my mom. And then he became the co-director of the music school in Aarhus. So I basically spent my childhood in a music school. And he started the first Center for World Music, using culture and music to, create integration and conversation about culture. So in that sense, it's shaped totally who I am. And also, music would be the entryway for inviting people in. We would always be singing together different songs from different places in the world. So in that sense, I think it was just a native language to use music to unite people who were different, but where you could always tune to that and create joy and share moments.
Wonderful. I'm going to stay in the formative years for track 3, Veronica, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Yeah, when you sent me these questions, I was like, I'm supposed to come up with something like obscure no one knows about because then I
No,
could
no, never.
kind of, very interesting musicians, like a real indie musician who knows all these B-rarities tracks. But the true answer to many of your questions are things that just also were very dominant in that era when I grew up.
Absolutely.
And I put down Come As You Are with Nirvana. And not just because of the track, but because it was my first real band. I was the lead singer in a Nirvana cover band when I was 13 in my elementary school with my brother, my older brother.
Yeah.
And we found a bass player who was like 2 years below us, but we like put together this band and we spent every break in school to rehearse. And then we performed at the school party.
Yeah.
And maybe I should have put Rape Me, but I remember loved singing Come As You Are. And then when I sang Rape Me, and then my parents and the school teacher pulled me aside afterwards and they sat me down and they were like, Veronica, do you know what you're singing about and what it is you're trying to say? And I just remember being like so angry with them, like, you don't get it. You don't get anything. You don't get Nirvana, like proper teenager, like, it's not, it's an anti-rape song and blah, blah, blah. So Nirvana was formative for my school years, but also as my first like lead singing role in
Yeah.
a band.
And I mean that record, never mind. It's I think one of the greatest pop records ever made. I think, insofar as alternative guitar music, it's so poppy. It's every single track on Nevermind is just got such huge choruses, such fantastic hooks, and Kurt's voice is obviously ridiculously brilliant. And
Yeah.
I think it's an absolute, well, it's no shocker that people think it's a masterpiece, but I think it always gets kind of credited for being a great rock album. I think it's a perfect pop album as well. I think the songs are so well crafted, and that's the reason it's so popular. It's every single track's an earworm. It gets stuck straight away. It's so catchy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think, as a teenager, um, seeing that, I mean, I was probably sort of 19 when Nirvana really exploded, and I was DJing in rock clubs, and seeing a response to Nirvana that I'd never seen previously. It was like you'd play these records and something was connecting. That that angst-ridden kid was fan something. It was like right, and I think that's why I ultimately must have just put so much pressure on Kurt Cobain being, that guy that everybody, as you just said, you felt like nobody understood what you were singing, but Kurt did, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame that we never got to hear, what that artist could have gone on to make, because it already created so much beauty. It'd be amazing to see what else was to come. But yeah, I'm going to ask you about
I
school.
think
Was
so. Sorry, I want to say one thing. Oh, is the connection okay? I think
yeah, yeah,
yeah. No,
yeah,
I just have one thing as well that I think also, at least to me, made it so remarkable in its time, which was what it was up against. And I
yeah,
don't know how it was for you in the UK, but in my village where I grew up, it was 90s dance music, right? It was
yeah,
like Cotton Eye Joe, it was Barbie Girl was a
yeah,
huge hit. So you had the popular music was, I would say, at least in my lifetime, probably one of the eras with the least substance
yeah,
when it comes to both lyrics, chords. Like it was just, I'm not saying it wasn't, you can't like any of it, but it was just, I think, at the shallowest point
yeah.
of content and substance. So I think it was also that it came at a time where it just had, it had that, and it was a counterweight to the mainstream mass movement of irony and not wanting to say anything about anything. And yeah,
And I think as well, it it took it literally was the final nail in the coffin of that kind of overblown spandex, cheesy rock that had dominated the late 80s, your Motley Crues and your Poisons, and it was all about the hair and the
yeah,
the makeup and the outfits, and all of a sudden you've got Kurt in a pair of ripped jeans and a and a lumberjack shirt, and that for me just was the thing that just put all of that music to bed. It was like that was gone now. This is real, and there's no the music is big enough here. It doesn't need a big image. It doesn't need to have it synonymous with like all of the sort of excesses of girls that your Motley Crues and your Poisons were all sort of shouting about. Kurt wasn't that. He was the anti that, and I think that's what made it so exciting and so relatable as well.
Right.
Tell me about school, Veronica. Was it something that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I was really good in school too. I loved going to school. I was good at everything. I loved everything about it. I had great friends. Yeah, it was just a great time. And yeah, I think as a kid, like you like things that you're good at intuitively. And I found it, I don't know, I found like this little world that we
Yeah,
had right in school in this little town. I mean, a lot of it was just very safe and comfortable.
yeah,
Parts of it was also claustrophobic,
yeah,
if that makes sense. Like I think because of my heritage, and we would like go away whenever we could and visit family different places in the world, because we were like that mix and no one else were. I
yeah,
had something inside of me that felt like I also need to get out. Like I need to
yeah,
do something else. There's another world. So when I became a teenager, I kind of I tuned out
sure.
because there the dominant culture in my village was like riding a scooter and drinking as many beers as you could, and that was it. And so I started, going to jazz clubs with my friends and doing other things, and changed school actually to go to the bigger city, to go to Aarhus, and then I left Denmark when I was 15 and I moved to Italy. So I was like, nice, nice, nice. Okay, I'm done. I want out.
Yeah. Did you did you know what you wanted to be when you was at school?
No, no. I think I had two strong directions. And I remember this formative moment when I was 15. I was in the first year of high school, and I've always been doing music, going to all sorts of both playing instruments, bands, etc. And you could apply for this pre-conservatory education that you could do while you did high school. And I wanted to apply for that with song, of course. I wanted to sing. And at the same time, someone came out to speak to me about this international school called United World College that had been founded, and well, one of the presidents had been Nelson Mandela, which was all about bringing people together from all over the world. And you could get a scholarship, and then you could live together for 2 years to explore cultures and talk about peace and social justice, but
Yeah,
also get an education. So I had those two strong, and I applied for both of them, and I got in the international school, and that's why I left for Italy. So I think that has always been my truth. I wanted to contribute to the world. I wanted to participate and work for social change, but I also equally want music to be part of it. And I think it's only now that I've found a way to live with both instead of neglecting one or the other, which makes me very happy.
wonderful. Tell me the first record you remember buying from a record store, please.
Rid of Me with PJ Harvey, and I bought it just because of the cover.
I mean, you mentioned on the last one you were going to try and pick something cool. I mean, you've got your cool there. I mean, that's for your first record to have a Polly Harvey record for your first record. That's very cool.
You could walk in Aarhus. I would take the bus in. And Aarhus is the second biggest city in Denmark, but it's still pretty small. It's like 500,000 people, right?
Yeah,
So I would take the bus in from my village, and every day I would just go to a record store and put on my headphones and listen to an album. And I didn't have a lot of money, almost no money, right? And I just saw that back. And no one had talked to me about it. I just saw that picture. Oh, and it looked so cool. Like the way her hair is thrown. I couldn't actually see whether it was a man or a woman. There was just something in the, I just had to listen to it. And then I put it on. And it was so unapologetic the way it begins. I mean, that could also have been on the great intro song, right?
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I just knew I had to have this. This was something unique that I'd never been exposed to before and never heard.
Have you maintained that kind of love of PJ Harvey's music?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's evolved as an artist, which is always nice.
Hmm.
You fall in love with someone's expression, and then you kind of want them to stay in it because you love that expression. But then
Yeah,
I think as you grow older, you also really appreciate artists that actually evolve. And she definitely is an artist that has evolved in many different directions. And I appreciate her work, also appreciate her lyrics. I am still personally, I think, mostly emotionally connected to some of the earlier stuff,
yeah,
the
I
more
agree. Same.
rock music, right?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you to tell me the name of the track that soundtracked your year's clubbing, please.
So this is remix of Bruce Springsteen's State Trooper, and the remix is made by Trende Miller,
Mhm.
a Danish artist. So I don't know if many people know it, but it definitely made the clubs here.
Yeah,
And it's the, I mean, it's not that State Trooper is not a good song, but it's the remix version that I really, really love it. And I think, it starts off, of course, with this very monotonous acoustic guitar riff. Um, but then the way that it builds up and reuses like the screams and everything, I just think it's so sexy.
yeah, yeah. Was did this come from hearing it in a club, and or had you already heard the Springsteen track, or was it just you heard it for the first time in a club, that version?
So to be honest, in my like, I clubbed a lot when I lived in Italy,
Yeah,
and then I moved to Copenhagen. And in my early 20s, I was playing in a rock band, and I didn't go to like traditional clubs very much. Like we had like bars and pubs and then home parties.
yeah,
So we made our own clubs. So I think the soundtracks of my clubbing years were more of like the dance tracks that we always had always put on. So it definitely came from, I heard it somewhere and then it was just, always on the playlist. Or you have these songs like you go to, like if I want to dance, if
yeah.
you put this on, I'm not gonna sit down, I'm gonna dance.
Wonderful. Um, I'm going to take you home for the next track and ask you to tell me a favorite song from an artist from your home county, please.
So there's an artist called, and it's maybe difficult to pronounce in English, so apologies. It's a Danish artist writing songs in Danish. He's called Guld i mund, which is Guld i mund. It's actually a word from an old Danish song that talks about when the sun rises, and you say that the sun has gold in its mouth, basically gold in your mouth. That's Guld i mund. And he has a song called in Danish, Det er kun vigtigt, hvad det er. It's only important what it is. And he's become very popular in the last couple of years, and I think that's an example actually too of a mainstream, I would say now, Danish artist that plays with a full band, with like flutes, oboes, a lot of different classical instruments, that has long intros
Mm.
and that takes time to actually unfold lyrics. I think he does it so well. He does it also in a way that I could never do. So sometimes you really also fall in love with artists that are able to do things that you would never be able to master. And yeah, I had to mention that song because I think it also symbolizes a little bit, when you talk about my childhood and what formed me, my 10-year-old daughter, like that's her biggest idol. And he basically sings about like divorce and sexism and all kinds of stuff. So I don't, but she loves it.
Yeah,
And so I took her to see a concert with him, and she was the only child.
yeah,
It was like sold out. And just seeing her falling in love with a real band, with real musicians, with, substance and everything else, just it made me really happy. I think there's always space for everything, but I think it also shows that we are not in a monotonous time right now
yeah,
when it comes to music. I think there is space for huge
yeah.
variety.
It's a. I'd never heard it until I got your list over, and I listened to it yesterday. It's a beautiful record.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. I
Yeah,
mean, I didn't expect you to know it, but
yeah,
I don't know if you're not, of course you don't, Danish is a difficult language to understand if you don't speak it. So I think a big part of it is the lyrics, but I also think musically it has a lot to offer. So I'm
yeah,
glad you.
yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. Um, it's your last track, Veronica, and for that, I'm going to ask you to be a tastemaker, and this is your opportunity to tell the listeners about a song that you know, that you love, that you think many of our listeners may not have known.
Hmm. So I, of course, went to a very dear friend of mine, but who's also an incredible musician, and I would also say has been fundamental as an emotional support, I would say, to supporting me being courageous. She has a band together with a guy called Jacob called Evil House Party, and maybe that's more fitting for the club scene. But they do these beautiful club performances and make really nice like dark pop dance music.
Yeah.
Uh, but it has such a, I think it's both really charming and really dark at the same time.
Mm.
And I wanted to bring that track out because I also think it just has that, easygoing pop vocals and pop production, but still has the darkness to it that I really appreciate. So I think I think it's people should check out Evil House Party, and yeah, I think it's worthwhile dancing to and falling in love with for all its different moods.
Well, Veronica, we make it really easy for people to do that because we put together a Spotify playlist to accompany the show, so people can go and listen to that and all the other tracks that we've spoken about today. And obviously, we'll be putting some of your music on there as well. So we've been spending a lot of time
Nice.
talking about other people's music. So we should talk about your music and what you're up to. Tell me what's happening.
What's happening? Well, I just released the second single from my debut album. Basically, it's coming out next year, and maybe it's called Peaches in My Halo. And I've been producing it myself, recording it myself. And just to give you, like the listeners, a little bit of pre-story, I've been doing a lot of different things in my life. I started two different businesses, social businesses, focusing on social impact. And I had to close the last one down after COVID. So I've been building this company where we created living wages for incarcerated women in Thailand and Peru, turned it into a fashion label, and an incredible project, if I can say so, with incredible women. And then we just had to close it down. And I think that moment was when I got a piano off a secondhand whatever online thing. I was like, and I started playing again, and it made me so happy. It made me so happy, Stu. I felt like I was coming home, or like it was like a
That's
connection
lovely.
to my upbringing, who I am, and something that I've been neglecting, I think. But I also remember, when I did a lot of music in my 20s and stuff, there was just all the guys were so much better than me at recording things or, turning all the buttons and so on. So I didn't have the technical expertise. And I realized that, yeah, we might, be a little bit annoyed with some of the how the music industry works right now in terms of, not getting paid or whatever. But some of the good things are that there's so much learning available for free.
Yeah.
So I just went on YouTube and thought, I need to teach myself how to do things so that I can
Fantastic.
figure out what would it sound like if I went with that idea, and instead of waiting for someone else to kind of help me out or help me get that out of me. So that's been my journey in the last 3 years, teaching myself how to produce music. And I really started with like, logic for grannies, like where is the compressor, what is
Yeah.
so it's been a huge journey, but also a lot of fun. So I'm really proud to have gotten here, and really, really happy to work together with George Elbrecht, who's mixing the album. Yeah, so we have a good ping pong. He's based in LA, and what else can I say? There's more music coming out in a month, and I hope that people will listen to it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Veronica, if they want to go check it out and find out more about what you're up to, releases and all things Veronica, where's the best place to keep up to speed with you?
Instagram is where I do most updates, and then of course on all the different on Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Then my music is out there, and people can listen to it and engage with it.
Fantastic. Well, if it's okay with you, when we release this episode, we'll tag you in it. So if people aren't following you already, then they can go and do so.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that, and I really appreciate all these questions. Do it really made me think, and it took me back home, and yeah, it's
Ah,
really fun.
wonderful. Well, thanks for turning us onto some new music as well, and I urge everybody to go over and go and check that record out that Veronica chose from her home county. 'Cause he's truly beautiful. Veronica, it's been an absolute delight talking records with you today, and thank you so much for giving up your time and coming on today.
It's really, I'm the one who's saying thank you, Stu. It's so kind of you, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.